Well, hello, my gorgeous friend. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. And of course, a big, warm welcome back to this episode of Lotus Life The Podcast, a podcast spot where you and I get to hang out each week, chatting about the fun in finding your own unique path to happiness, how you can live your best goddamn fucking life and find joy in even the smallest of things. You know, just embracing being that imperfectly perfect human being that you are. If you didn't know, the lotus plant has this beautiful flower that grows out of muddy water, both the same thing. And anyway, and this podcast, Lotus Life, is just a celebration of just that, blooming from even the murkiest of conditions in life. Or when you haven't quite yet had your morning coffee, it could be the muggiest of conditions in life. Who knows, really? Anything goes in isolation, right? I'm your host, Rose Tautari, and this episode is what I'd like to call an in-conversation episode with the incredible Sarah Menlove, who is returning to the podcast, and I am so incredibly grateful for her wisdom and gifts that she brings through her mission to help women in their self-love and body acceptance journeys. If you didn't catch Sarah's story when she was a guest on the podcast previously, Sarah comes from a background of going through the loss of her period for several years after a life of training as an incredibly competitive swimmer and then going on to be an international representative triathlete. And after years of all of this pressure and competitive and very masculine high performance training, she discovered her body had actually suffered an injury that she wouldn't be able to recover from to continue at that same level. And that was the thing that started on her own healing and body acceptance journey, which now she shares those beautiful gifts for helping other women to heal and transform their self-love story. She is an absolute light in this world. And so both Sarah and I thought that we would press record on and share with you this kind of in conversation episode where we were really inspired by the messages and the chats we've both been having in our own online communities and with each other, and just about the real life, about this nature of a kind of lockdown or isolation scenario or situation that so many people are finding themselves in right now. How that really has just been bringing to the surface for many people old fears around body image, relationships with food, relationships with exercise, how it has affected people's routines and rituals when it comes to anything from, nourishing exercise and self-care or self-love, and how that process of just getting in touch with your true inner self and empowering yourself with a deep sense of self-love can really help with a time that is challenging. There is no two ways about it. This is a challenging time for everyone. And, we're going through a set of circumstances that no one has faced before in this collective sort of human experience that we're in right now. And to really just dive into a chat about getting in touch with your inner why and purpose. Obviously, from my point of view, there's so much in that human design perspective that I am here to talk about and share in terms of how our souls are all uniquely here for their own specific purpose. And that human design can really just directly determine whether you are someone who can thrive in isolation or whether your soul is feeling like you want to climb the fucking walls, right through even to just a beautiful understanding of your body and the self-worth that Sarah, in her purpose here, helps women to discover within themselves. So we both hope you enjoy this conversation. And as always, if you've got thoughts, comments, aha moments, tag me, DM me, let me know. I would love to hear from you. Okay, let's get on in with my wonderful friend, Sarah Menlove.
Cool. Well, I'm here with the lovely Rose today, and Rose and I are going to just have a bit of a jam. We're going to talk about some things that we've been noticing around exercise, relationship with self, relationship with body and movement and food at this time. Rose, actually, can I just get you to introduce yourself, babe, and just share what you're about? Because I'd love to hear it come from your mouth.
Yeah, of course. So this is where it's awesome having your expertise with that recovery and body image and body kind of confidence and celebrating that. And then I've kind of experienced a lot of that myself in my own life and had to go through my own journey. But my jam is helping people understand their human design, which is all to do with essentially what your soul has come here for in this lifetime. And you can think of it like it's astrology on steroids, or you can think of it along the lines of, depending on your birth time, your birth location, and your birth date, it is all basically what was going on energetically at the time you were born that kind of, I guess, results in what your very specific design is when it comes to how you interact with the world, the energy you project into the world, and the energy you take in. So it's all to do with that energetics of how we all live here in this lifetime. And it's just a super empowering thing to know about yourself, because it gives you that permission to be exactly who you came here to be without worrying about all the bullshit from society or conditioning from the world around you, which is why we then get into these incredible conversations about just being so super, you know, tuned into yourself and understanding yourself and honoring yourself, whether that's your body, your the way you kind of treat your body, self-care, self-love, all of those good things.
Yeah, and what more kind of important time to tap into that than now, right? When we've potentially been living according to society's expectations of us up until this point, and there's this sort of collective pause going on at the moment, which is really allowing people to see these parts of themselves, and it might be quite challenging or quite confronting, and they might not have usually followed their own internal guidance. They might have been following what they were being told or just what they had to do to get through the days. And now that's why I love being able to have you share this wisdom, because it's like you get to just understand yourself in this space that we have right now, which is so powerful. And Rose did a reading for me just last week, which was so incredible, and we're so similar in so many ways, which is amazing. But yeah, just that empowerment that it gives you to be able to live in alignment, but also to kind of have that compassion for yourself, right, around what's coming up, what you need, and honoring that.
Yeah, 100%, because it is just that, as you say, it's that we've all kind of been enforced now to have to go into that moment of stillness, which for a lot of people, either it might be natural for them to be on the go all the time, you know, according to their particular design, or it might be that they've been swept up in that kind of treadmill of life and haven't realized that they've not managed to quite clear that moment or space to sit down and be with yourself. You know, it's quite, as you say, it can be quite confronting if you've never taken that moment to sit and just evaluate how you're feeling, what you really truly are feeling, and what is going on for you in terms of, are you kind of just following a path that maybe you feel you should be, or doing things in your day-to-day routine that are the shoulds that you've absorbed from other people around you or the world around you. So yeah, it's so important now to kind of, that's what we're, I guess, here for, is to give that support and guidance for people that as they're kind of going through that process of, sitting with themselves and going, am I comfortable with this? Or is there a whole lot of shit going on for me in my head that I can't understand right now? Yeah.
I think we can both relate to that in our own lives, right? Having lived, what was your experience with sort of living in that constant go, 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 following society's expectations, and how did you find that affected you, your relationship with your body, but also just the kind of messages that your body gave you because of living in that way?
Yeah, so definitely for me that empowering part came with getting into human design, because I finally understood, for me, why I had typically always been so super sensitive, super open, you know, identifying, I guess, with anytime anyone spoke about, you know, being an empath, or people would quite often tell me when I was young that I was an old soul. But, you know, it for me, because I was so heavily conditioned and open to the world around me, which now I understand that I am. That's my gift. I'm completely open to the world around me. But that meant that from a really young age, I absorbed everything rather than letting it kind of be the sieve that it transfers through me and take the wisdom out of it. I just soaked it all up, like the good, the bad, the everything. And it heavily leans towards, I guess, the kind of more negative side if you've not done the inner work and the inner understanding and really kind of delved into your own self-development. So that was where I very much had absorbed a way of living that it was like my sense of self-worth came from other people, like those fears of judgment, fears of being seen, that kind of classic. I was influenced by the energy of others, so I was running on empty a lot, and that kind of led eventually to that real burnout cycle, overwhelm cycle, and for me it manifested in the physiological stuff that, like adrenal fatigue and hypothyroidism, where my body just went, can't handle this anymore, you're literally running me on empty, and trying to go when you really need to rest, and learning how to rest in a way that was suited to me, which I know you can totally identify with. And this is where we sit there talking about these things, because you've got such a similar experience in that kind of just that out of alignment, running on empty sort of approach, right?
Yeah, totally. And the way that our bodies are so incredible in how they respond to that, right, in order to make us slow down when we're not going to otherwise, like how you shared with adrenal fatigue and things, and like burnout. And that's something that a lot of women who are conditioned to living in a more masculine way, but that's not necessarily in alignment with them or with their design, as you would share, can lead to that. And for me, obviously, it was more of the physical, the training side of things, the exercise, the constant pushing of my body, not allowing rest days, not allowing time for rest, and just the injuries, the loss of period, that forced me to stop. And my body shutting down the reproductive cycle through HA was my body's kind of way of showing that as well. And yeah, so it's really interesting how these pieces tie together, because both you and I, in our design type, as I found out from you in our reading the other week, was really need that time for rest and need that time for recovery, which we all do, but I guess even more
yeah
so.
Because with both of us being projector types within human design, it is like that's our kind of underlying thing, is that we don't have our own energy source. So we are here more as the guides and the seers and the sort of helpers of others, but not coming from that place of having to do all the work. There are 80% of the world around us are designed to have a motor, have like a direct access life force energy in them, whereas we are the minority of, and that's where that conditioning comes from, that we are alongside other people in the gym or training or at work in our day-to-day lives, who 80% of those people have got that motor, have got that energy, have got that ability to go, and we're trying to keep up, and we're kind of absorbing that energy. And in your case, we talked about the fact that you've actually got, with your root center, you've got that sense of like pressure to go, whereas I don't even have that. So it depends. For me, it's like if I'm around people who've got that, I will feel it, but once they go away, I lose it. So it's that kind of uncertainty as well, as to why one day you feel super motivated to go out and do something, and then the next day you're not, and so it does lead to that burnout, because you're trying to keep up with 80% of the world around you, and we're just not designed for that. We've got other gifts that we're here for. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's just like this, like out breath, like relief almost. Like, there's not something wrong with me. That guilt that we create on like why am I feeling this way? Why is everyone else able to do these things or have so much energy or constantly be, showing up in this way? And for me, that just feels like, guilty for not. So there's that ability to release that pressure.
Absolutely. And because projectors typically are so focused on other people, that's our gift. We're able to see into other people and understand them and help them. So we naturally are very aware that other people, we feel like they're working harder than us. So we feel like we've got to prove ourselves by working just as hard or harder than everyone else, because we're going, well, yeah, I've got this undercurrent of, well, why don't I have that energy? Maybe I am lazy, and then you kind of try and make up for it by working even harder than the person next to you. And it's just, you get to that point where your body goes, no, enough's enough. The universe says, sit down and have a rest. You can have an injury, you can have a chronic disease, you can have something that's really going to finally make you rest. And it typically is, I think, people have sort of looked into it, that for projectors especially, they can kind of push past all those signals of burnout and overwhelm for kind of somewhere between 30 to 40 years. And then that's about the age that it will manifest physiologically, if it hasn't already. Yeah.
And that was certainly true for us, right? And
bang on 30 years old.
way of living. But I just want to speak to what a fucking gift that is. I think initially, anyway, I'm not sure about you, but initially for me, there was a lot of almost victim around that experience at the start, just kind of like, oh, I don't want this to be happening. Like, why can't I keep training, keep competing? Why is my body doing this? Like, I just wanted to get back to the way it was, rather than initially, but I got there in the end, but rather than taking the time to sort of be with what was there in that experience, what that experience was there to teach me, and how that could actually be something that would help me and help me grow and see these different parts of myself, which potentially a lot of people are being called into at the moment. But there's that question, are you allowing whatever is coming through for you or coming up for you to be that gift, to call you into knowing yourself a little bit more, or being more in alignment, or honoring your body more? Or are you resisting and sort of questioning and doubting the experience that you're having, and resisting against it? Is that
totally. And I think that links into that whole alignment kind of conversation, right? That if you're kind of out of alignment with your true self, that's where all that spectrum of emotion around the sort of the uncertainty, the fears, the negativity comes in, and that's where it's so empowering to, I guess, know yourself, but also understand how the other people around you might be living in a way that is totally right for them. So it's kind of that removing that, I guess, judgment of yourself for not being the same as the person next to you, or that you're close to, or that your family is. Because in human design, you can be a totally different design to the rest of your family. And that's where it gets really tough, because you've grown up maybe in an environment, I know for me, I grew up, I'm an only child, but my parents are a generator and a manifester. So I grew up in a home where you were just always on the go, and it was just a natural thing to be super busy, always be on the go, always be doing something. And I very much grew up with that feeling of going, well, I feel really lazy, so I have to kind of work even harder to kind of fit in. And so it is kind of that I guess that relationship with all of those things to do with ourselves is sometimes so influenced by the world around us that it's being able to dive in and know yourself is so powerful, especially when, as you say, when it comes to body image or celebrating your body as well. I think it's kind of almost like it's a it's a consciousness thing, right, for the world around us, because you look at the world around us now has got so much of a groundswell of acceptance of diversity and body images being celebrated across the spectrum. But you and I grew up in a generation where the only people we were seeing that were kind of celebrated was the kind of the 90s, like heroin chic and the kind of the skinny model. We didn't have the Lizzos of the world to show us that you can be successful and be in a body that looks, you know, fantastic for, you know, no matter the size.
Yeah.
Oh,
so many things. Like, this is why I love
I know,
because I'm just like nodding, and like every time I talk to Rose, I'm like, yes, that's me. Like, so validated, so heard, so seen.
Yeah, so, you know, like when you say, like, you know, for you in that experience of growing up, like, you know, yes, you were in a world where to be successful as a triathlete, obviously you have to have certain physiological things going on, and the training and the nutrition and the commitment and the drive. But it's also, you know, outside of that world, like back then, probably even, there wasn't that diversity in just, even if you wanted to step away from a sporting world and be successful, there was still that you only saw one type of person in that mold. And
100%. And like,
I improved so much, but it's got a long way to go.
Even I would say, like, even now, the reason that now I see more diversity is because I opened my mind up to that.
Yeah.
Versus maybe that was available then, but I wasn't. I was like, you know, a personal trainer and Fitspo training, and, you know, that was the world that I surrounded myself with from a very young age, like from swimming, being a sports prefect at school, going to a PE phys ed degree university, to working in a gym, to training in triathlon, right? So you can, like, all of my relationships, friendships, family even, was sort of centered around fitness and exercise in some way. And so, let's leave that there. But you get to choose, right? You get to, I think that was something big that did shift for me, was that just opening my mind, making, you know, even if those images weren't in my face, or like there wasn't a huge diversity of different body types in my physical space when I was surrounded by so many athletes, which is great, but like I got to choose to add diversity into my life through social media, which was amazing.
Yeah, and we've got to remember as well that places like Instagram, where I know for me, that's been the biggest shift for me, and the biggest, I guess, place where I've been able to access all of this world, you know, has been since Instagram came along. And so before that, we just, unless it was in the mass media, you didn't have access to it. So while obviously social media and that whole discussion is a whole nother thing as to the ways that it can negatively influence, I do feel that, as you say, that if you've got your eyes open and you are actively open to a range or the kind of diversity that is out there, it can be so empowering, because you suddenly can see that there are, you know, millions, if not billions, of other people who are diverse, and they're celebrating that, and they're owning it, and they're able to share their gifts in some way. And I'd like to think that a time like this as well is helping to break down that kind of control of the media in a way. Like, you look at the fact that that big magazine publisher has just folded and collapsed. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'd like to think now that whatever comes along to replace something like that, the vacuum that's left behind, will be something that celebrates diversity, and will be something that has the conversations about that health at every size, you know, can have those conversations, rather than the unflattering bikini photos of someone on a beach and pointing out all their flaws, which is what we were all growing up with. You know, it's no wonder we absorbed so much of that messaging around a woman is only what she looks like. You know, it's that worth comes from your physical outward appearance. Yeah, it's no wonder we had all of that to go through to now be able to share with others and help others. Yeah.
Yeah, and how good, again, like the gift in that getting to kind of unpack that stuff. And like when you were talking about some of the words that were coming through for me when you were talking earlier, around, I think it was when you were talking about our design, you know, there was like a comparison that was coming up, judgment, self-acceptance and acceptance, or wanting to be accepted by others. You know, I guess these are all kind of conditionings that in coaching I love to help people work through, but it's really cool to hear you share a bit about the design, like how that plays out in your design type, and how knowing your design can just drop away that comparison, because you realize very quickly that you are not like, potentially you are not like the majority of the people in your life, and then you just get to be like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Obviously there might be some deeper work to do there, unpacking some stuff around desire for acceptance and things, but like I think that is really huge for, you know, as a human being, we want to fit in, of course, we want to belong, we want to feel like we're loved, we're safe, we belong, we have the love and acceptance of others. And it gets to then come back to this place of, it's not because of what I do or what I look like that I'm getting those things.
Absolutely. And it's so, because we talked a lot about this when we did do your reading, because you are a person who, that kind of instinctive, I guess, center for that tribal kind of acceptance, and yours is completely open. So you are literally, that's your gift, is that you are completely open in the way that you, I guess, interact with those fears of the world around you, and it does leave you more open to potentially taking on other people's that are not your own, but by doing that self-development work, or that kind of shadow self-work, and looking at those parts of you that you go, okay, well, is this truly me, or is this something that I've absorbed from someone around me? And by kind of having the routines and the things that will help you to kind of flush that out or discharge it from yourself, because you go, as you say, you get handed your kind of permission slip with you knowing your, say, design, and then you go, oh, okay, well, none of that's actually me. I've just absorbed that from the world around me. And so it's suddenly this moment where this weight lifts and you go, oh, okay, I can get rid of all of that. I've experienced it and I understand it, and I can empathize with people around me who are going through it, but I don't need to bring that with me anymore in my own life.
Yeah. So there's such a level of self-awareness that comes with that, right? So just speaking to those people who might not have necessarily gone deeper into these parts themselves before, I think just acknowledging that the first part of that is to really just be aware of what those things are that are coming up for you that might not be yours in the first place.
And it can be so, it can be such a simple level kind of just even looking at, you know, the classics around, they talk about things like, you know, just, I'm trying to think of an obvious example, like, you know, say someone who always feels the pressure that if they leave the house, they need to put on makeup, you know, just that kind of conditioning or societal conditioning that, you know, where is that, I guess, coming from? Is it that you are passionate about makeup and you love makeup and you want to share your gift and you want to express yourself through that? Or is it coming from that place of, oh fuck, I'm going to run into someone I know and I need to look acceptable? You know, it's kind of those two sources of, are you doing it from a place of love for yourself and your expression and your creativity, or are you doing it from a place that is worried or has that fear of judgment, not fitting in? Yeah.
How good. Love or fear?
Exactly.
Like being able to ask yourself that question, is this coming from a place of love or fear? And without any judgment, right? Because we all come from a place of fear sometimes, but like being able to say, if it is, then, you know, what might be there to kind of shift to allow you to come back to that place of love, and what is it when did you learn that, and whose actually might it be?
And it's exactly that, like you say, the kind of not judging yourself. If you look at it and go, oh, okay, well, I can see it is coming from a place of fear or a place of judging myself, but then not judging yourself for that fear, so it's saying, okay, this is a work on, maybe in my life, but I don't have to change everything overnight. I can just sit with it and observe it, and maybe start doing the little steps that's going to heal that part of me, or that, the inner child who's worried about being accepted by the outside world, that loving on yourself, right? And not kind of then going, oh my God, I have to stop doing what I was doing immediately. Because that's not sustainable for anyone. You can't just suddenly go, I'm going to get rid of all of this overnight, because it's often been, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of stuff that you're having to kind of peel back and work on and go through.
Yeah. Or seeing those things and then being like, the whole I'm wrong, I'm bad, I shouldn't again, like I shouldn't be feeling this way, I shouldn't be putting on makeup then, should like your what Brené Brown calls like the shame cycle, or the piling on of shame.
And I think I've heard her say something like being stuck in like the shame shitstorm or something.
That's it.
All the time. Yeah.
So good. Yes.
I know.
So the only way out of that, right, is self-compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't bully yourself out of that, right? That's never going to work. You're going to make yourself feel worse. So it's going, okay, and I think it's where, again, kind of going back to understanding like the human design part of it, right, is that going, well, okay, maybe there's something actually in your design that your motivation every day is, say, to look your best and be successful. Maybe that is actually something that is true for you. That is, there are plenty of people out there who their motivation is success or fame or money or to be influential. And that's perfectly fine for them to kind of have that motivating drive every day. And maybe as part of that, it is that sense of knowing that, okay, when I leave the house, I want to look like that person that I envisage myself being. When I'm up on stage in front of thousands of people, I want to be that person right now. So it's understanding that it's okay to have those motivating factors as well, because I think there's a lot of, particularly when you do get into self-development, there's almost then another kind of thing that comes in where people feel like they're being judged for having kind of more materialistic motivation, and that's where like things like you're saying, like that kind of, okay, maybe my thing I'm feeling right now is that I can't get to the gym every day. And it might actually be that for you, that sense of, oh my God, I can't get to the gym, I can't work out, I'm losing this sort of, where I was at with my gym routine, might come from that motivation that that your drive is to be, kind of super influential in a sporting field or something like that. And so that's where that real sense of like, oh my God, this feels awful that I'm in lockdown and I can't get out and do what I need to do. So it's kind of that empowering to know that maybe your motivation is actually coming from somewhere that is like lit up in your design, that is true for you to have that kind of, I want to say like material kind of success driven motivation as well.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm so glad that you spoke to that. That's cool. So it's power to you to be just living as you want to live in a way. But can you share a little bit about how that kind of could relate to identity and being able to differentiate between like, that's part of my design and my motivation, and I'm going to go for it, and then feel really guilty if I can't do it, or, struggle with not having that, and then someone who's potentially in a not so healthy sense identified with.
So kind of that, like we were saying, I guess, like before this call, like how, you know, being in a lockdown kind of situation or at home and can't go out, you know, it's that bringing up all that stuff internally about, you know, exercise routines and your body image, and, you know, maybe even your food routines, like the fact that you can't go to your favorite, you know, vegan cafe and get the food that you love because you're stuck only being able to go to the supermarket once a week and they've run out of all the organic whole food, you know, the stuff that you would usually buy. And so again, I think it comes down to that kind of alignment or out of alignment, right? And that what we were saying of that, are you kind of, is that sense of self or your sense of like your self-worth wrapped up in the routines or the rituals that you're kind of like slightly maybe addicted to because there's a sense that it's coming from a place of fear? Or is it that you are actually truly in alignment with yourself, but there are things within your particular design that maybe either allow you to step back and go, okay, this is only temporary, I can live with it, you know, I'm just going to double down on the self-care and know that it's uncomfortable, but this too shall pass. Or there might be like, there is actually stuff in your design that to disrupt your routine is really fucking awful. Like, you know, that you are not designed to be the type of person that does well with chaos or, you know, a different thing every day, depending how you know, on what's going on around you. So that's where that, like you're saying, the understanding that, you know, your type, and how your design works or what is true for you in your human design gives you that thing where you can understand, like, there are some people who are truly happy just being in their own bubble at home, you know, they call it the hermit types, right? Like that, you know, and you and I have both got this in our design, that we are very, very comfortable and happy in our own bubble at home. Like, you know, leave me here and I'm all good, you know. But there are other people who it is true to them and their design that they need to be going to different environments every day. They need to be going to kind of be able to listen to their intuition and follow that of whether they want to go to a busy cafe or go for a run or get out of town, you know. So there is stuff there that lets you know, I guess, what is true for you or what is something that you've maybe absorbed from someone else. And so even just down to understanding like the physiological side, that for our type, we've not got a huge amount of energy. So moving our body every day is going to feel good, but it's coming from a place of gentleness, of lovingness, of calm. You know, it can be something as simple as just going for a walk or a stretch or whatever. But for a generator and a manifesting generator, they have got energy to burn, you know, and it will feel physically horrible for them if they haven't been able to get out and burn that energy off every single day. Like they need to be kind of falling into bed at the end of the day exhausted, but happily exhausted, you know. So it's empowering. It's empowering because it just, you might be, you know, your partner or your husband or your wife or your sister or your, you know, your mother, they might have a completely different design type. So, you know, that's where it's not kind of judging yourself if you're not the same as the person that you're seeing right next to you, I think is where it helps as well, because you can understand and go, oh, okay, they're a generator. They have to get out and do stuff every day. Whereas I'm a projector and I'm actually quite happy if all I've done is, you know, sat on my yoga mat and done a few stretches and then laid on the floor and had a nap. You know, that's it's just me. Yeah. Yeah.
Such a beautiful self-acceptance that comes with that. When you can truly say, this is me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you? I'll do me.
Yeah.
We'll come back together at the end of the day.
Yes.
I won't, you know, judge you for doing you and doing your routine that might be a bit more extreme than mine. And I won't judge myself for doing less than.
Yeah.
Because that can sound like a negative term, but doing less than someone else because it doesn't mean anything about you.
Yes. And I think that's so important, right? Because it's often not that we're going, you know, maybe there is an element of going, oh my God, are you working out again? Or, you know, like, what is wrong with you? But most of the time, I think for most people, they're going to be looking at themselves and going, why am I not the same as you? And why am I not doing the same as you? And are you judging me because I'm not being the same as you, or keeping up with you, you know? So, yeah, it is very much that empowering yourself to just go, it is okay for me to be me, as long as you are in touch with who that me is, right? Because it's knowing you're in touch with your true self, not the version of yourself that has been conditioned by society.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where getting your design read, or
Well,
at least having an understanding, or because you can get an understanding of which type you are, right? Just by an online test, then you can just sort of say, oh, that's where I fit into that kind of structure.
So there's some real broad level stuff that is so easy to just access. You know, anyone can access it, just as long as they can at least put in their birth information, and then find out at least which one of the 5 types they are. And then that, for most people, just understanding that moves the needle massively, because they can actually get into that flow of, oh, this is energetically how I interact with the rest of the world. And you can go as deep as you want, you know, like for yourself, going into a full reading, and understanding all the little nuances that then come with it. But for most people, just even understanding how they energetically interact with the world around them and what is in alignment for them is just so useful to, like you say, move the needle in that kind of self-acceptance. And the other thing I was going to say about going back to the food thing, just before I forget, is that, you know, that kind of being in lockdown situation, like, you know, there are some people who are going to go, oh, I couldn't care less if I only have to eat leftovers of whatever's in the fridge or whatever's in the cupboard. And then there are other people who genuinely, you know, for a generator or a manifesting generator, they need to be saying like hell yes to everything in their life. So if they're having to eat food just because it's in the cupboard and they can't go and get the stuff that is the hell yes for them, it is so soul destroying for them. And it's really hard for someone else to understand that if they are the type of person who it doesn't matter, and they've got other things that are their kind of I guess must-haves in life. You know, for a generator or a manifesting generator, or even a manifestor, to have to, you know, make do with food that isn't usually what they would eat or what they would choose or what they would buy, it's awful. And so it adds to that whole energetic thing that it becomes a real struggle to manage a situation where you're not able to get out of your bubble very easily, you're not able to go to the supermarket as often as you would like, or the products you would usually choose have all run out, or all those things can really compound on that feeling that a situation where you are kind of in lockdown is really tough to navigate. And so it's taking away the judgment on yourself for maybe feeling like that.
I love, man, I'm learning so much just I love understanding this gives of other people as well, because I think there is sometimes a bit of a like, oh, why can't you just, because it's easy for you to have a certain way of being, right? Say the leftovers thing, like, why can't you just be happy with whatever's in the fridge? Versus really understanding that for some people there's part of them that is challenged, I suppose is a good word, by that.
Is physically kind of shouting at them, I don't want that. You know, that is not lighting me up. So I am now out of alignment. And even just, I guess, the going back to the environment thing, right? That for many people having to be in, going back to the fact that you and I are both the type of people who are very, very happy being in our own environment. But I know myself, if I had been stuck in lockdown, say somewhere else that was not my ideal home environment, I would be finding that so challenging. So, you know, it's kind of acknowledging and honoring the fact that if you are also not in your ideal environment to suit your type, that can be also a hugely impacting thing on how you're feeling, how you're processing everything, how you're just kind of getting through the day to day. You know, that can be a whole nother level of thing to have to handle. Yeah.
So many pieces to this puzzle and this conversation, but I think like we really wanted to share this at this time, just for, you know, we're both kind of talking about food and body and movement and things a little bit, but it's also just this deep compassion for yourself and the experiences that you're having and potentially the emotions and the feelings that are coming up for you, and to know that everything that you're experiencing is okay.
I think it is. It's that coming down to kind of loving and accepting yourself for who you are, and maybe tuning into those hints that are maybe coming up where you go, oh, I kind of know I'm not quite tuned in. I know I'm out of alignment, or I know I've drifted out of alignment. So what is going to help me get back to, or even find that place of knowing yourself? Because I think it's for some people, when they're just on the start of that journey, it can feel like you just don't even know where to begin, right? You kind of go, I just know that everything feels hard, everything feels confusing. So it's kind of going, well,
I was just thinking, like, what would be the signs that someone would be experiencing that would be giving them those nudges or those hints that they're out of alignment?
I think in the broad sense, I think there's every human being would kind of know that, just that feeling of anything that feels like it's draining them, right? Anything that feels like it's draining your life force, that you're overwhelmed, you've got those things that are kind of constantly feeling like life is hard. I think that's that kind of overarching human kind of flag that things are out of alignment, right? Because when you're in alignment, life feels like it's in flow, it feels like it's easy, it feels like everything's beautiful. You can see the good in every situation, no matter if it is a challenging situation or not, right? You can meet someone who has got nothing to their name, and they can still see the beauty in the flower that is on the street, you know. And that's that kind of, I guess, almost like Buddhist approach to happiness, right? That that you can find happiness in even the most challenging situation, and having that inner peace to be able to get there. But then you can go into the more specifics of, say, understanding your type and understanding the actual specific for you in your type flags that are going to go, okay, this is the real thing that tells me, am I in alignment or am I out of alignment? According to kind of the emotional spectrum of how you're feeling. So projector types, it's anything that's bitterness is our kind of, as a projector, that's our kind of flag to go, if we're feeling bitter about life or bitter about a situation, that's our kind of little thing to go, okay, we've got to course correct somewhere here. Things are not in alignment, so we've got to get back on track or look for what is causing that. For your generators and manifesting generators, their kind of emotional thing that will come up for them will be if they're feeling frustration. It means that stuff's not working, they're not tuning into their gut, their life force energy, and that's where the whole, you know, frustration about not being able to eat the food you love or go to the gym or burn off that energy, it'll lead to that frustration and just that stuck feeling of energy that it's stuck inside you. Manifestors, it will be anything, it'll manifest for them quite literally as anything that makes them feel angry. Like anger is a real kind of and it can be anger tinged with that kind of like life isn't fair. That's kind of their flag. And then for a reflector, what says reflectors are only like 1% of the population. So I I know that for
Sorry,
them,
reflectors.
yeah, I know. I always get a bit hazy on the reflectors stuff if I haven't kind of reminded myself. But I know for them to be in alignment, their thing is like life will feel like magically surprising. And then I think if they're out of alignment, it'll be like life just feels like bland and boring, and like they're not kind of sure of what's going on. So, but yeah, they're kind of the magical unicorns. So.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just to speak to like that it gets to be easy.
Yes.
I just like I kind of asked that question because I wonder if there are some people out there, right, which is probably where I'd been in, and potentially you as well, who thought that it just had to be that way, like it just had to be a struggle, or it had to be hard, or in order to be successful you have to be pushing, driving, like it has to feel really challenging in order to like then achieve something. And that's almost another conditioning, right, that we're socialized into. And to even just hear you say like when you're not in alignment it feels that way, I feel like there's a lot of the population that are potentially living from that place.
Yeah, totally. That it's that we're kind of sold this lie almost that to be successful or to make anything of yourself or to get anywhere in life, it has to be a struggle. It has to be hard work. You have to, like sweat blood to get there. But
Yeah.
it's like, who the hell came up with that story that was, like, yeah, no. But definitely that was conditioning for me, that I had to do a lot of work to get over that I genuinely thought that everything had to be a super hard struggle and fight to make anything of yourself and to be recognized by other people and to be, given, access. Any kind of success was going to be like, yeah, you had to kind of like work so hard to get there. But that flow and that alignment and that being kind of energetically in the right zone and your zone of genius and like that, just once you've got a taste for that, you kind of go, oh my God, this is what
Yeah.
I just want everybody to experience this. Yeah.
So what we're kind of speaking to now, for those of you who may not have delved into this deeper sort of work, is really the stories and the conditioning that you might have taken on to be true, and just really getting some awareness around so like what Rose was saying, the story that she created was that in order to be successful it had to be really hard, she had to be constantly working hard, and it had to be a struggle. And then to just be like, to have that blown apart, and be like, it doesn't have to be that way, is just kind of this, we have these stories about everything, right? Whether it's about our body, like in order to be loved I have to have a certain size body, or in order to be successful, right? In order to be successful I have to be I have to be managing or controlling my body in some way. And like these are the things that we get to just say like, see ya, to, because that's not our truth anymore. And it was created by, if it was created by someone else, like, well, we can create something for ourselves, right? And so what, obviously the new story is that life gets to be in flow, and that success and magic happens when it feels effortless. And that's not to say that like Rose isn't doing anything right, but what she is doing feels effortless because it's in alignment and it's flowing and it's all kind of lining up. You'll meet those people that are just like, wow, everything just seems to kind of work out for you. And it's not that they're not putting in effort or they're not showing up. They are, but in the right places and with the right kind of energy behind them. Is that am I saying that right?
Yeah, totally. And I couldn't give a fuck what I look like while I'm in my flow. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is that all the stuff that is the isn't important drops away, right? So So for me, it was like busting that myth for myself that my sense of worth or success was going to be dictated by how I looked outwardly, that my body had to be a certain size, a certain shape to be acceptable and therefore like recognized by others as being, someone who could be successful running their own business or any of those stories that I had absorbed over time. So now I know after doing that work to go, well, actually, I'm in alignment with everything my soul is here to do. And who the fuck cares what my outward body or like, what's it called? I heard someone call it like your like meat sack that your soul is living in, right? It's just a like bag of like meat and bones, and it actually doesn't represent anything about your soul's worth. Like, yeah. And I love that because I'm like, yeah, it is. It's so true. It has nothing to do with how successful or not you are or how good or not your soul is. Like everyone is inherently good, Yeah.
And it's the partnering as well with our bodies, right? Like through being able to kind of step into your genius and share your gifts. It's not only like, cool, you get to do that through this body and that's great, but you're partnering with your body as well, because you're saying like, how can I nurture you so that I can share my gifts? How can I listen to the wisdom that you're providing me so I can share my gifts? How can I kind of, be like, our bodies just have, and I know every design type is different for this as well, which we probably won't get into today, but to be able to know that our bodies are speaking to us all the time in different ways.
Yeah, 100%. And that tuning into yourself, it can look like, whether you nourish yourself with, only organic whole foods, that is not inherently better or worse than someone who enjoys eating, a whole range of food, or someone who drinks alcohol as opposed to someone who doesn't, or, all of those things kind of, it's really just coming to a place of going, well, you just honor what is true for you and what it is that you're tuning into, and going, okay, well, as long as at my core I am in alignment and I'm happy and I am truly, accepting of myself for who I am, then that's where it all kind of like flows from there. And it's also kind of that thing that, it's all kind of temporary at the end of the day, right? So, you and I have both been in situations where we've stuck to really, excruciatingly strict regimes around food and nutrition and exercise. And, it's all been like calculated down to the second of, when we're allowed to eat, when we're not allowed to eat, and how much of that you're allowed to eat, and how, but it's also temporary. It's like you can do that for a time, experience that, and then go, actually, that doesn't serve me anymore. And now I'm at a stage in my life where I can accept that, the change and the experience and the enjoyment and the living of life is the bit that lights me up. And I don't know if that makes sense. I went on a total rant just there. So
totally makes sense. But yeah, and it does take some work for many of us. It takes some work to unpack that and let go of that, and that's okay as well. But yeah, like you said, it's an honoring of yourself and a real deep kind of trusting of what's true for you, which I think kind of the theme that we've ran through today is that what's true for you might not be true for someone else, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what they're doing or what you're doing. And it's kind of moving away from that concept of good and bad, right and wrong, or worth being placed on, how much exercise you're doing, what you're eating, what your body looks like, how successful you are, how much money you're making, and just really coming back into that place of truth within you and letting, I think something coming up for me as well is the ability to let others be in their truth really fully as well.
Yeah. I love, I read a while back, it must be a couple of years now, Gabby Bernstein's Judgment Detox book. And that was such a really good one I found for just really understanding that process of letting go of any residual judgment you might have of what other people are doing or saying or the way they're living their life, because ultimately you can't change other people, and you can't live their life either for them. So the more you can kind of just let go and go, actually, I'm just gonna, you know, do the work on myself and embrace you, and I'm here for you, but you know, I don't have to judge you for what you are or aren't doing. And I think, yeah, it's exactly what we talked about at the start, that this time is bringing up so much of this, because it's like it's right in our faces. We can't ignore it, because you might be stuck in your house with your, you know, partner and your kids, and you're suddenly having to go, well, why are you not eating that? Why are you eating that? And why are you, you know, why are you working out when I don't want to? And yeah, so it's kind of like, it's the universe is kind of throwing all this stuff in our face and going, okay, here's your lessons to learn. Here's your things to accept, or to kind of take the time to go, okay, why is this triggering me? Or why is this an issue for me? Or why is it that actually this isn't an issue for me at all? I'm perfectly happy being at home. And I thought I was the person who needed to go to the gym every day. And I'm loving the fact that I'm so happy that I don't have to get up and go to the gym. You know, it might be the other way around, that people who were kind of stuck in that zone of feeling like they should go and do it every day, and now actually going, oh my God, I feel so good. I feel so happy. Which equally can be really confronting. If you've built your identity on the fact that you get up at 5:30 in the morning and go to the gym every day, it can be really confronting to suddenly realize that maybe that's not serving you anymore.
So just being able to sit with that and what it brings up for you with compassion as well, right? And like,
yeah. And I know we were talking a little bit about that kind of topic of like the importance of honoring, like if your body is wanting to rest, and you know, that kind of sensation of going, well, okay, society tells us that we need to be busy and we need to be productive and we need to be consistently motivated, and then honoring that feeling of right now, well, actually, I don't feel like doing anything. That's kind of something that I guess like you and I have both, probably not just necessarily in this time, but like in our kind of journeys of self-discovery and self-development, we've kind of had to make our kind of peace with the fact that actually, rest is something we need.
It's still something I'm really working through, to be honest, because it's been like, what level, you know, and there are questions around like, am I just distracting myself from what I need to be doing, and is this fear that's showing up in this way, you know? So it continues to evolve, and I think especially over the last couple of days I've been feeling into that need for more rest, like, and I'm like, really, body, more? Okay.
So in terms of for a projector type, which is you and me, so that's where like tuning into that need for rest and honoring the fact that we need a lot of rest in our life is really quite specific to a projector. We need a lot of sleep. We need to honor the fact that we need to nap as well. And it's quite interesting because it's almost the complete reverse of what society thinks that we are supposed to be here to do, you know, the kind of 8, 10, 12-hour workday. That is a generator or manifestor paradigm society, and it's actually not really suited for any type at all, but we would ideally as a projector only be working or doing something, say 3 to 4 hours a day. And so that's where by having a job or a sort of style of life where you get to be in control of where you put your energy and your hours and like how much or little you work is super important. And it's almost like this situation right now with the lockdown is like a projector's ideal pace of life, like that kind of much more slower, much more reflective, much more taking the time to kind of observe and see and guide and honor the fact that our souls need rest. And I think across the board, humanity as a whole probably needs this slower pace and opportunity to rest and opportunity to tune in.
I'll just say, like, I think this might be quite confusing to you if you haven't explored some of these concepts before, and that's okay, and it is just a place of awareness and of opening up the possibility of looking into these things.
So the funniest story at the end of that wonderful conversation, which I hope you loved as much as we loved recording it and bringing it to you, was that clearly the universe said, right girls, wrap it up, you've got to your point, you've made your points, let's move this show on so you can get it out and share it with the world. Because literally at the point that we were ready to sort of tie things up and have a nice little kind of bit of banter to close out this episode, all of us got booted out of Zoom, and it just would not work anymore, no matter how many times we tried to finish up with a nice little conclusive chat for you all to share. So it now falls to me to record something just as I'm getting ready to press publish on this episode for you. So I really hope you enjoyed that chat and that conversation, and if there's things that came up for you in that you can really resonate with, or it's really kind of inspired you in some way in your own experience of isolation or, you know, lockdown life, yeah, absolutely, come and DM me, tag me if you're listening to the episode. Love to hear from you. And as always, be kind to yourself, look after yourself. You are a beautifully imperfect, perfect human being, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.